Yeah. That's right. DK the Punisher. Smooth as wine. Episode 3. Cello here. Another episode of Bedroom Beethovens, the show where I talk to people a lot more creative and successful than myself. Hope you had a nice Valentine's Day. Got to spend quality time with your lady or your man. I don't really have a good segue here. In fact, I don't have one at all. However, my guest this week will almost make you hate him. DK the Punisher, a.k.a. Donovan Christopher Knight. I'm sure he doesn't want me telling y'all his real name, but hey, we're going to strip down and get all the way human on here. He has seen levels of success before the age of 18 that most people work their whole lives towards. I learned so much from him, and you will too. This was such a treat, ladies and gentlemen. The main idea I have is success might seem attainable when a guy just lists off his accomplishments rapid fire. And then people might think, yo, man, if I'm just talented enough, won't a record label eventually scoop me up and deal with all these things for me? I mean, we both know it doesn't work like that. It's talent and hard work, luck, opportunity. There are a lot of talented musicians out there. What you need to stand out these days is a true connection with superfans who are going to buy your merch, go to concerts, and talk about you to everyone they know. And they want to see social media numbers that reflect that rabid fan base. A tour history to show that you can successfully tour on your own, and buzzworthy press. It may feel like a lot, but with patience, planning, and a clear head, it's all within your reach. If you're listening to this, it's all within your reach. Remember, having a business mindset about your music career, it's not selling out. It's just the reality of what it takes to be successful. And it's one of the most important lessons you can learn. This week, DK the Punisher has worked with Jill Scott, Justin Bieber, Musiq Soulchild, J-Rock, Anderson .Paak, before Oxnard. Oxnard's good, but pre-Oxnard is so good. Venice, Malibu. There are no shortcuts around consistency. Episode 3. Again, I'm your host, Cello, and you're tuned into...
It's the Bedroom Beethoven Podcast.
DK the Punisher, man. I'm a bit intimidated because you seem like a nice guy, but that's an aggressive name.
Oh,
I'm a bit new to you, but you're not a hard guy to find. Like, once I peeled back the layer of like obvious producers, Pharrell, Timbaland, Just Blaze, and I go down to like layer 2, there you are, highly visible.
oh, that's crazy. I didn't know I was that high on the layers. I would think at least layer 5 or 6, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, you were on my short list to get. And also, it's a Sunday afternoon, arguably the second easiest time of the week next to Sunday morning, and you're a kind enough soul to talk to me, talk shop for a bit. So,
yeah, man, I love to, man. I love talking about what I do and music and just everything about it. I'm so engulfed in it, so it's a pleasure, man, for real.
Well, I'm not a music producer. I feel the same way you do. I'm just a fan, and I love hearing those stories.
Nice.
And I think that's what kind of makes this podcast a little interesting and kind of has its own little spin. So, so I guess we'll start with low-hanging fruit. How are you? How's everything? You been good?
Man, I'm awesome, bro. I'm great. How's everything with you?
Everything's good, man. I love doing a podcast because like all I need is a microphone and an internet connection, and I'm able to create just like you. Like I'm just a creator, and I don't have any expectations on the show, but hopefully I'm like you. I build, and some greatness will come out of it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I did a little due diligence on you, a little closer under the microscope, and I was pleasantly surprised to know that you worked with so many artists that I've been inadvertently listening to for years. And I'm from Austin, Texas, so a lot of these artists don't necessarily fall across your lap. And I'm talking about Tyron Iomari and Mosh and Twist and Sir and Don Kennedy. I'm fans of all of them, man. I really am.
That's crazy, dog. I just ran into Tyron and Ayo at the homie's birthday party last night. I hadn't seen them in a minute, like at least a year. So it was good running into them.
So to me, they're just sound bites on my Spotify, but like they're human figures to you. You know,
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
Man, they played a big part in where I am today for sure. Like,
yeah, and don't worry, we're going to get into all of that.
Sorry.
Just the best thing about this podcast for me is like just listening and enjoying your work over the years, but I didn't know it, and now I have this opportunity to talk to you and show you some appreciation, assign a face to your melodies. It really is an impressive body of work.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I actually have a funny story about how I was introduced to, I think it's Mosh and Twist. They worked with a guy named Hoodie Allen that I was kind of in. I wouldn't say I'm into, but, he was on a couple of playlists of mine. Mm-hmm. And me and my boy went to go see Hoodie Allen in concert. And, man, guess who opened up for him? G-Eazy. And nobody knew who he was.
What?
No, like the crowd was just mild until Hoodie Allen came on, and then people got off their seat. And then, like, I don't know, 4 years later, he's on stage with Britney Spears at like the VMAs. Like, so that was always a crazy story for me.
That's crazy, man. I'm not like super familiar with Hoodie Allen. Like, I've been hearing his name for years. Like probably since around the time I was working with Motion Twist around like 2011, 2012. But
yeah.
It seems like he's had like a steady fan base. Like a loyal fan base, really, like people that come out to his shows and support his music, and he doesn't really, chase the quote unquote mainstream success. Like his fans just hold him down.
Yeah, I'm a pretty humble guy. I just don't know how I'd react to if I was an artist and someone opened up for me and I was bigger than them at the time, and then they're like superstar. I mean, right. You want to put your friends on and you want to feel good and you don't want to be negative, but I don't know if sometimes he comes home and and he just thinks about it sometimes. The crazy thing about him is like he used to work at Google and he quit his job at Google. So he had like a really high paying corporate job.
G-Eazy?
Hoodie Allen.
Wow.
Yeah, to like pursue. The thing about G-Eazy is back then he was like a doo-wop rapper. He would sing over like 70 doo-wop beats. And of course, when he got signed, he completely transformed and now he's like super mainstream. But regardless, it's a funny story, but yeah, let's start all the way back from the beginning. I want to know like the full 360. So, where did you grow up, and wherever you grew up, was hip hop a big influence around your hood growing up?
Man, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in the 90s, so like, hip hop was huge, like everywhere. I wasn't really, when I was like super young, I wasn't really able to get access to it that much. Like I kind of had to sneak and listen to the hip hop radio stations and stuff. So I feel like that kind of fueled my curiosity towards it, because it was kind of taboo. Like even when I got older, like certain rap, I kind of had to put the headphones on and listen to, like if I was listening to my Cassidy or my, Jadakiss or whatever, that was a little too, curse word heavy or edgy or whatever.
We're talking about your parents right now. They didn't want you listening to that.
Yeah.
So they didn't. So when you got interested, your parents just weren't having it. Like, hey, mom, I want to start making beats now. Nah, I ain't buying you nothing.
I mean, it's kind of weird because I started rapping before I started making beats. So like from the time I was like 8 or 9 to around like 11, 12ish, I always had like a notepad with me. Either like I used to draw at first, when I was younger, and then when I really got into rapping, I always had like a composition notebook with me, writing raps or whatever. So that was kind of the norm. You know what I mean? It wasn't really. It was just there. Like it was just something that was, and it wasn't really encouraged or discouraged. Like it was really just kind of me and my brothers, like our interest in in rap.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the '90s too. We got to be the same age then. I grew up in the '90s, and I think my first rap taste was like the Fugees. I had Mace, Harlem World. I had 8 Ball, Get Lost. A lot of the old No Limit CD covers that were like graphic design to hell. And my mom would just she would just break the CDs. Like she would just see the parental advisory. I'm like, nah, this ain't happening. But now I'm a parent. I got 2 kids, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm thinking, I was like, man, if my kids if they had a notebook and they were going around and they were writing down rhymes, or they were mocking up album covers and drawing it, or putting together bars and rhymes, I would try to get past the curse words and see how creative my kids are being right now. Like, it's not just something where like you need to stop listening to the devil's music. It's like my kid is writing content. They're composing ideas, and I mean, what other thing other than like video games can get a kid that excited and creative at such a young age?
Right, same. But I mean, I understand it. Like getting older, I used to kind of have a sort of resentment towards my parents for it. But it's like, man, I understand they were young parents, first of all. And there was so much other stuff going on. It was, me, I had 2 older brothers, and it wasn't just, I wasn't just interested in music, like we still had video games, we still played sports, and it's got to be tough trying to cater to all those interests. You don't know what's going to stick. You know what I mean? So I really don't fault them too much for that, especially, being where I'm at. I'm like, if it wasn't for kind of having to pursue it so much on my own, I don't know if I would have had, developed that muscle, developed the drive to kind of push through.
Yeah, it's almost like, if my mom would have bought me all the beats and any CDs I wanted, it's kind of the silver lining. I probably wouldn't have hustled the way I hustled.
Right.
And then you and your siblings or maybe cousins, that kind of fell down that rabbit hole with you?
Oh, yeah. Man, I have an older brother that's like a year and a half older than me. So when I was like 12, my mom got like a new computer, like a newer generation Dell computer, where we had like an old shitty, like super shitty computer, like, and I was still trying to figure out, how I could use the sound recorder or whatever to figure out how to record some raps or whatever. But once we got a newer computer, and somebody told me that, hey, you can like record music on your computer, like make beats or whatever. I was like, once I got that, I was like off and running. I was just trying to figure out how to do it and downloading programs. And so like, I think the very night that I found the multi-track recording program, me and my brother recorded like a freestyle, just because like we were always together, and we were like, it was like part of the culture to like, kind of freestyle when you with your homies, you know what I mean? Chilling, and somebody get to playing some instrumentals or whatever. And that was just always a part of our lives, so it was kind of, you were kind of cool if you could rap, I would say, like back in that time when we were growing up.
So this is like around high school, like just...
Nah, this was like middle school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost, it's kind of like, different generational thing. You might as well have said, I was saving my lunch money so I could go crate dig, so I could find a perfect sample. Right. It's so much easier. Like my mom got a new computer, and rest is history. Boom, superstar. And then, all right, so you're in middle school, and then that love, because, I look at your background, and not to jump the gun, but you became so successful so young. How, that obviously probably wasn't the end goal, but you're in middle school, you're working on your 10,000 hours.
Right.
What's the next step? How do you take it more serious? Are you forming a group? Are you performing locally?
The fact that I wasn't really sharing it with anybody, I wasn't really gonna be like, yo, I got this talent, blah, blah, blah. Put me in a studio, give me some beats or whatever.
Right.
I just didn't have that in me at the time. So it was kind of like my secret project. So I was like, man, how can I do as much of this on my own as possible to where I can present it to people where it's already good? you know,
Yeah.
to where I'm not so insecure about it. Me and my brother started recording raps with my cousins. Like they were taking it, you know, a little bit more serious than us. So we were like recording mixtapes or whatever. The song sounded horrible, by the way. So it's funny. Like back then we thought they were the shit, but like sound quality was terrible. So I understand why it didn't really go any further than it did. But it was like, man, like we thought we were dope. Like we thought we were ready.
Mm-hmm.
I got into it super early. I had more time to kind of make those mistakes. Like, so when my older cousins were like, it's like, all right, you know, we having fun with this, but at a certain point, real life is going to kick in and, you know, real responsibilities to where, you know, whether it's, you know, having kids or just, you know, having to take care of themselves. Like, you know, everybody had to get jobs at a certain point, and if it wasn't really working out or looking like it was heading in that direction, it kind of, you know, fell off.
So producing was kind of a natural evolution. Like I would imagine back in, what was this? If we're in the time frame of early 2000s, Kanye West Through the Wire is coming out, where a producer could be a rapper, and
Man.
you know, a lot of kids are like, they don't realize, oh, that was a Shaka Khan sample. Like that was before my time.
Right.
I don't have to loop. I don't have to scratch. I don't have to crate dig. I can grab a sample and I can manipulate it enough to where I'm not going to get sued. It's cool. This is like a new way to sample. This is a new way to create music.
First of all, Through the Wire, like seeing that video and when that album came out and learning about Kanye and his path, like that's what drew me to making beats. I was like, yo, this dude is dope. Like, I love this sound. I love everything about it. Like, I want to have that for myself. Like, it's weird. I wanted people to react to what I was doing the way that I was reacting to what he was doing.
And how were you reacting to it? Like, was that like your first emotional response to, like, dude, I saw something on the TV and like, you know, that's like that, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. My mind was blown. I was like, how is he doing this? Why does it touch me in this way? Like it was soulful. It was like everything I grew up on, you know, around my parents. Like they were playing soul music, but it was hip hop, and it was introspective, and it wasn't like, it was rap that I could connect with, because I wasn't, you know, like before then when I was rapping, I was, you know, rapping about what I thought was cool. I was rapping about busting guns and you know, robbing people and just violence and stuff I wasn't really doing, but it was people around me, I guess, that were, you know, doing that. But that was never really my personality. So to hear somebody rapping about insecurity or rapping about, you know, just regular human emotions and sounding cool while they doing it, it was like, it was something new to me. So I gravitated towards that so much. And plus everybody around, like, it was still cool. Like everybody loved it, like from the street dudes to you know, regular working people to like everybody was listening to Kanye. And it just blew my mind what he was doing.
I think for me, it's like he wasn't the first of his kind to come out with music. You know, we all know about conscious rap and all that, but it's like, you know, I know you worked with, you know, Big Pooh, and BET refused to play Little Brother because they deemed it too intelligent. But okay, I'm going to take this guy. He's attached to Jay-Z. We'll play him. Maybe, you know, I'm not an A&R. I'm not a record exec, but it's like maybe we could take conscious rap that has a really strong following and make it mainstream. And it was a pivotal time because I know you worked with Big Pooh like really early, and for me it was impressive because it's like, okay, Big Pooh's going to fuck with a teenager when he has Ninth Wonder in his back pocket. That's phenomenal, you know. And Minstrel Show is one of my favorites. That one joint, how can it be? To roll the number down, it's here in front of me.
I got the number down right here. I'm looking at it. I couldn't believe she would do me like that, B. I just don't understand it, dog. Can't understand it. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome y'all back to the Minstrel Show. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all can be watching a lot of other stations, but y'all tuning in.
And that's like, If I could have seen that on BET at the time, I probably would have been right there with you. I probably.
What's crazy? I saw that on BET, dog. Like the first time I ever heard that, I saw the video on BET, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, I gotta find out who these guys are. I went straight to LimeWire, looked up all the Little Brother I could find because I was like, "Yo."
But there was no outlet, like, and that's why a lot of my friends who listen to rap, they're going to listen to like Juicy J or whatever Spotify is going to recommend. But when you come across like a song like that, you can't just go to BET and learn more. You have to go on the internet. You got to Google, and you start developing this love of looking up artists, which is why I love doing this podcast. So you kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit. Like that music wasn't very accessible, but it was so good.
Right.
And it's crazy. So around that time too, MySpace, I don't know, might have been on its way out or it could have been big. Was that ever an avenue, kind of like how SoundCloud is being used? Was that an avenue for you to kind of hook up with people?
Man, that was huge. That's how I first connected with Toronto Omari. When I was in high school around like 2008, I don't know if you ever heard of Pac Div.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I saw their video on like MTV's like kind of independent, like where they would play kind of indie artists or whatever, they would play their video. So I saw their video, Fat Boys on there, and I was just like, holy shit, who are these guys from this place? Like, dressing with crazy colors and, all this stuff I thought was cool. But they can rap their asses off, like all three of them. Like I'd never heard a trio of rappers where all three of them were dope as fuck. So I did the same thing with them. But it was like MySpace time, so I found their MySpace, and really I kind of like stalked them from there, like and just started checking out all the artists they were friends with. That's how I kind of got connected with Dom Kennedy and Toronto Omari around that same time. So I was just kind of looking up everybody that was in that vein of what they were doing.
It just seemed like a less complicated time. I mean, like by the time you're 18, you put in your 10,000 hours, you've gotten on the radio, you work with Justice League, Little Brother, the W's just keep coming. You're making it seem like this shit is easy.
Man, it was so not easy. That's what's crazy, man. It's like I felt like, man, by the time I was like 21 and I ended up getting a Justin Bieber placement, I felt like I was doing it forever. You know what I mean? Like, but it's weird because I've been kind of entrenched in the producer community, via the internet for so long that I know so many different stories. I know people that, like, I literally know a guy that got paid $15,000 for the first beat he ever sold.
Ooh.
Yeah, nice. So it's like it's crazy, stories and people, like, it's all types of. I'm using my hands and whatever. I keep forgetting you can't see me, but it's like it's so many different levels and just different variations of the path that it's like I would compare myself to what other people were doing so much that I felt like I wasn't doing shit. I guess hindsight is 20/20 because looking back at the working with Pooh and working with Toronto AO and stuff like that, like it means something to my career. But back then it was just like I was trying to get my foot in the door, really.
Now I have kind of my chance to like voice I've always had an opinion on Justin Bieber because I remember when he came out and he sang songs of like youth and innocence and lost girlfriends and shit. Now he's an adult, he's married, he's a grown man, I get that. But at what point did he just seamlessly blend over into hip hop so hard and accepting? Because I'm over here a few years back, I'm bumping the new Raekwon album. There's fucking Justin Bieber on there singing hooks on DJ Khaled songs, and he's on stage rapping with Drake and Big Sean, and he literally hijacked Pooh Bear and was like, "You're not going to get on that plane. You're going to stay here. You don't need to work with anybody else.
Right?
Why would you want to work with anyone else? I got all the money." So of course he's going to stay there. So I don't know. Tell me about that switch because maybe I can find some answers to this by learning about your experiences and journey working with them. Man,
well, first of all, like pop music and hip hop have been so intertwined for, at least the last decade, like just kind of intermingling with each other. Like before he was working with Pooh Bear, he had a song with Drake, back when he was kind of doing his Kitty or stuff. Like it was a few hip hop producers that would, that would get tracks to him here and there. I think he had a joint with Hit Boy, you know, back before he made the transition. So it was always kind of, that influence was always kind of there. But it's funny, the whole Pooh Bear thing is like, man, so when I was out in LA for the first time, it was because I was in the songwriting camp with Andre Harris from Dre and Vidal, who are like, they're known for doing like Music Soul Child and Jill Scott and all that. But also they did 2 joints on Usher Confessions, which was Caught Up and Superstar.
That came out when I was in college. That was a monster
Yeah,
album.
man. And I used to. It's funny. Like I was living at his crib, and I would just walk past those plaques like all the time, just stare at them like, fuck, 15 million, like worldwide, like really?
Yeah.
Okay, but Pooh Bear and Ryan Toby from City High wrote both of those songs, so they're like they've been tight since like the late 90s. You know, Pooh Bear and Dre.
Mm-hmm.
So when Pooh Bear like kind of first really, you know, got in there with Justin, he came to Dre's house like, yo, like Justin's working and he's doing R&B. Like he wants to do like real R&B. So I mean, he came to pretty much the guy, you know, the soul guy, the R&B dude, and Dre kind of just gave him a bunch of stuff that, you know, everybody was working on in the house. And, you know, I gave him a bunch of beats or whatever. And, but yeah, I remember that first kind of powwow. Like that was my first time meeting Pooh Bear. And, you know, we were just sitting in the crib studio, just kind of chopping it up, talking about music, talking about, you know, the direction Justin was taking and kind of where R&B was. And he's, from what I saw, he's like genuinely a fan. Like it wasn't, you know, so much of a calculated thing.
So, and you're in LA now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because of Andre Harris?
For the most part, yeah.
I like him a lot. I know he's kind of like, hey, if you need an R&B record, I'm the doctor you come see. But we share that same philosophy in, I always looked at old Janet Jackson records and like the R&Bs of the 90s. And if you look at the production credits, what do you see? I don't see a Justice League of producers. In fact, it's pretty rare for a producer to produce the majority of an R&B record today, or even a rap project today. And I was always thinking like, man, what changed? And I want to believe it is like people don't think like you. Like, I'm just going to work with my friends, or I'm just going to work with people who vibe with my music. I think a lot of projects are spearheaded by a major label now, or they have like an A&R overseeing it, which is a lot of different people, or it's a lot different than the way you would like to record, or in the way a lot of classic albums have been recorded. So it really did get me thinking, like nowadays artists, they get tracks from multiple writers and producers, and they kind of assemble an album together. I believe the same way Andre Harris kind of believes that magic is created when one or two producers are involved, and like no more, you know, because when you have a bunch of people in there, you have some cohesiveness and you have like a quality effort. And I remember when I was in high school, the single of the album would be fire and the rest of it would be like filler or trash. I remember getting suckered, man. Like, I'm not saying the Fabulous album was trash, but Fabulous had this Can't Deny It with Nate Dogg. And I was like, man, that's a great single. And then I bought the album. I didn't like the album. And then I was like, man, I get it. You have a rapper with some Just Blaze single. It sucks me and I buy the album, then I'm let down. Obviously, with the internet, that's kind of changed. But if you look at it, like look at Janet Jackson, like I mentioned before, or Amy Winehouse's Back to Black, or Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. It's like one or two producers and nothing else. So it's like, you know,
man. But that's like I don't really think of that as like a label A&R relationship. Like that's just the homie.
So you feel like. Like even though I've been in the game so long, unless somebody's walking down my hallways and sees a plaque with 15 million sold, it's like, it needs to be a full circle relationship. Like I looked up at those walls, I aspired to be that. Until I get that, I don't feel like I made it.
I would love to to feel like that, to feel like I made it, I make a cool living off of the music. But as far as like, I feel like I would be a little further if I did kind of have those label relationships. I don't know, man. I really enjoy working with who I enjoy working with. I'm not I've kind of been down that road, of just trying to work with people because they're popping and, because it would be a good look or whatever. But a lot of times the music doesn't really come out, great. So, like, that's really all I care about. Like, I can't. I've had so many records come out that I wasn't proud of that I just got tired of that feeling. You know what I mean?
That's real. That's real.
It's the most disappointing feeling as a musician, because you spend so much time working on these records. You put your heart and soul into, like, even before it's a song, like, I'll fall in love with a beat or whatever I'm doing, and then to kind of have the final product just be whatever. It's like, it's heartbreaking, dude. Like, even if it's a dope song and the mix is off, it'll still bug me every time I hear the song.
And it's more challenging too, because you're a multi-instrumental producer, which means, hats off to trap producers. But once trap is done, you might be done. And if you produce so many sounds for so many different artists, it's going to open things up more for you. And I think you hold on to that feeling you get when music has that first emotional response with you, and you kind of want to chase it. I don't think my daughters are going to grow up and remember, maybe the first music that inspires them is a Lil Yachty beat. That would be kind of crazy. But I don't know. Can I take my daughter, who will be 15 in the year 2030, and put on a really old Missy and Timbaland joint and have her bob her head to it? And I think that's kind of the age-old question. If I'm going to be proud of my beats, is this classics? Because in my opinion, classic albums, they're not subjective. They aren't opinions. It's a public consensus. Would you agree with that?
See, that's I to this day argue. I mean, it's weird because I'm appreciative of people receiving it well and stuff like that. And of course, like, it being in the past, hindsight being 2020, you see, like, oh, this record helped me get to this, helped me, help this relationship, or, this person hurted me here and it led to this or whatever. So, like, I appreciate the records for that. But as far as, like, older stuff, man, that doesn't sound great, I don't listen to it. I might listen to it for nostalgic purposes, but, like, the shit still bugs me. Like, I still, think about the things that went wrong in the process sometimes, and it kind of fucks with me. Like, I can't really go down memory lane too far, because like, you grow and your standard changes of what you think is good.
I get it. And music's about cycles. We can't be mad at the evolution of things. You can't be scared to evolve. That's why it's important to stay young and current, but keep the integrity and identity of who you are musically. And I think that's why I was so curious about Bieber, because I wasn't sure if it was staying true as an artist, or he grew into a man and he found a lane he was most comfortable in. Let's explore that. Like, how do we do that? How does DK the Punisher, how do you wake up in the morning? How do you go to work and accomplish a sound that isn't forced musically, but allows you to work in your craft and kind of produce that middle ground?
That's something that, because music is constantly changing, technology is always changing, just the way we interact is always changing. It's kind of like I'm kind of always learning, you know what I mean? Learning new ways to get to artists or whatever. But one of the things I can control is how up on my craft I am. So I just try to create as much as possible, try to push myself to be more creative. You got to connect with people and press play and see what they're on, have them play what they're working on, and just kind of go from there. You never know what's going to turn into what. Like, my relationship with like Sir was totally different when I first met him. Like, he was a writer. Like, he was strictly a songwriter when I met him, and we were both working with Andre Harris, and we just clicked. Like, we were just both fans of music. we were both super huge Jay-Z fans, and I had the honor of like really, really putting him up on Dilla. You know,
The master.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dilla and like Little Brother. Like, of course, I was familiar with like Outkast, but he really got me to like dive deep and like appreciate how amazing of an album Aquemini was. And then he told me like go back and listen to Southern Playalistic, and just like I appreciate him so much for that, just on a music fan level. So our relationship kind of just grew from the fact that he was dope and getting better as we were working. Like I saw like his passion. He was working a day job. He would catch the bus over to the house, and we would just kind of kick it, try to figure out how to get some weed. You know what I mean? Like we were both just kind of just figuring it out, and our bond kind of came from that. And it's strong. Like that's probably the strongest relationship I have in this game. And he ended up writing a song, writing the Jill Scott song I did. So we share that level up in our career, and just like, man, he brought me over to TDE and introduced me to everybody, and like shit like that. Like that's why I appreciate those organic relationships.
When a high level person tells another high level person to go listen to a project like Outkast, you're not listening it to catch a vibe. What are you listening to? Are you listening to the way the chord structures are, and like fill us in for, I guess, the layman.
Just I appreciate music. So he was like, if you like this, we were both like big Jay-Z fans. He was like, if you like this, you'll love this. Like, because I've always been into like live instrumentation. Implemented into songs and stuff like that. So it just kind of made sense for me to be into that.
Well, I mean, that's like that's an East Coast artist recommending a Southern artist, though. Where's the connection?
Man, I don't know. He's older than me, first of all, so I kind of missed that. Like I was, I think Southern Playalistic came out in '96, so I was 4 when that came out. I didn't.
Yeah, hard to appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't really. The same with like super early Jay-Z stuff. Like, I didn't really start paying attention to music until like 2001. So,
but that's the thing though. It's like, all right, if I'm listening to Illmatic, why isn't Nas just as dope? And I touched on this on my last episode. Why isn't he just as dope at age 40 as he is at age 19? And the argument is always, well, he didn't have Pete Rock, he didn't have DJ Premier. So it's almost like you need great production to bring out the star of your lyricist.
It depends, though, because, all right, so early on, Outkast had, they had Dungeon Family. You know what I mean? They had...
Organized Noise.
Organized Noise, yeah. Thank you. And, later on in their careers, they were producing that. Like, by Aquemini, they were doing most of the beats themselves. You know what I mean? So it really depends on what type of artist you are. Like you might not need that. Like if you have that ear, if you have that, interest in the full process, like you can kind of get away with doing more yourself. Like I don't think Nas is that type of artist. Like he's such a lyricist and so kind of entrenched in that I think that's where he kind of lacks. Like I don't think he has the most amazing ear for production.
I'm learning about your journey, and this is kind of what I'm digesting from it. Like being a DIY artist, I guess it not only means you have the freedom and creative control to do what you want when you want, but also you're 100% responsible for your own career and making decisions that could jumpstart or stall your success, which is kind of dope.
Right.
So the other half of producing, it's shit like this podcast, right? I see a lot of artists who have all the talent in the world, yet still cannot seem to move forward in their careers. And when you look closely, for me, the stories, it's always the same, man. Lack of budget, lack of social media presence, lack of energy, lack of resources, chasing every opportunity, feeling burnout. These are all obstacles, yes, but they're also smaller goals en route to success. And they almost always stem from the same place, a lack of a plan. And when I listen to you talk, I'm hearing that plan, man. I'm hearing the relationship building. It's paid off for you in stride. I feel like This might be low hanging fruit, so I don't want to expand on that. Instead, what are some fundamental things that I need to make sure that I'm doing as an artist, especially in the early stages?
It's funny because since I started so young, I wasn't really conscious of a lot of the things. So I was just doing it because I really enjoyed it. Not to say I enjoy it less now, but now I look at it as a skill. I look at it as a craft, and I have to stay on it. I have to practice. I have to be disciplined about it. So I make sure, like, even if I don't feel like creating, I'll come and I'll mess around on the keys just to keep my skills sharp. Or, that's a big part of it, like, that people miss the discipline of it, because we look at it as it's a creative endeavor. We're artists. We're supposed to be free, blah, blah, blah. That's cool. But, I'm really into, people's stories, like just great people, So I'll hear about, Kobe Bryant, when he missed a free throw, he would stick around and shoot 1,000 free throws after a game or after a practice or whatever, just because he was that dedicated to his craft, and it paid off. Just that level of consistency, it transcends like what you feel like. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, how I feel isn't really that important, especially like looking back on what I've done, in the past. Like, I didn't feel like doing all those. I mean, well, yeah, I didn't really, think that every record was going to be great or lend to my career, but, just doing things and kind of staying consistent to that path is paid off. You know what I mean? Like everything I do as far as music is practice. Like knowing what is an emotional component of it, and knowing what is just a work component of it, and being able to separate the two and bring it back together is kind of really important.
Do you ever think about how you want people to feel when they listen to your music when you're rapping a project?
All the time. That's why we have listening sessions and stuff. And, we'll come in, get Blaze, listen to the project, see what feels right, move stuff around, like the process of like finishing projects, man, is tough. I feel like that's the hardest part for most people, because, anybody can, get in and record a bunch when they feeling passionate. But then once you got 30 songs and you're trying to figure out what's going where, or what's the single, or what are the keepers, like what's your strongest work, and then trying to figure out what features you need, and, just the whole process of finishing. I've seen, I saw J-Rock go through that. I saw Sir go through that last year, and it's really like, it's a stressful time, so having those listening sessions is important, and just having different ears on it and getting people's input, like that's really, really important.
Well, we're friends now, man. If you want to email me a beat and get my opinion.
For sure.
I know you're big on culture too, and using your music to push culture, your people, creativity, and the arts. I had to ask you, man. T.I. destroyed Floyd Mayweather with a scathing diss, man, in support of Gucci. Yeah. And it seems like it's something that you would be in support of.
Man, I didn't even listen to it.
Okay,
but I appreciate the perspective. Maybe I need to listen to it to like really have an opinion on it, but I understand that for who T.I. is and what he kind of stands for, it makes sense that, he would have a problem with that. Especially like the way the culture is going, man, like paying attention. Like I watched Killer Mike's show, and digested that, and just all the interviews, and it's kind of, coming together, this whole view of how responsible we are for, our culture. And like you can't shuck that responsibility off, man, especially being an older gentleman, that people look up to, that people respect, that, like you have a voice, you have a platform, and so many people like, don't want that responsibility. And I get that you want to live your life and you don't want to have to, live by, like, the public is kind of finicky, so you can find yourself, a slave to their whims of what's righteous in their minds or whatever. But
Yeah.
the fact is, like, if you have a level of integrity about what you do and what you stand for, that transcends all. So that presents itself in you learning, and your opinion may change with the times, or it may not change. You know what I mean? Like but you're always learning. You're always trying to be better. And when you're just a 40-year-old man, that's just like, man, I don't give a fuck about what's going on, about the culture, about how people feel about me, about, my responsibility to it or whatever. It's like, all right, dog, like, I get it. I'm not looking to you for anything.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what the diss track was about. So, DK, let's be pragmatic for a second. Like, so for those not familiar, the diss track was along the lines of, they get the fame, they get the wealth, but people are struggling. And who did you help? Could you feed some countries out in Africa? No, you're out buying a Bugatti. And Floyd's stance was like, on the other hand, which is, and I'm very curious to kind of hear your take on, is what was done that caused so much strife. Why wouldn't we agree to a permanent boycott of Gucci? Because in this day, failing artists pick and choose the hottest trending topic as a means of seeking attention and using fake advocacy as their platform when their talent no longer benefits them. So I don't know if it's an ego versus wealth thing, or if this is a larger issue for the urban community. Because like you said, that Killer Mike trigger warning stuff's coming out. There's a lot more awareness. If you're in boardrooms and you look around and it's all white people in 2019, that's a direct reflection of your leadership. Donald Glover getting the best rap song for album of the record of the year at the Grammys. It took that long. I'm a big proponent of people like you changing the landscape of America. It sounds daunting. It sounds like a big undertaking, but I truly believe that people like you are on the forefront, because what you do is infectious and it influences and it can shift narratives.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I'm able to see that, that people look up to us, and what we do, and they look at creators as larger than life. Like, that's how I was looking at people when I was growing up, and just like, I'm really just like, in the past few years, like, being out in LA and meeting people, I've been kind of disappointed by some of the meetings, to be honest, because sometimes people aren't as passionate as I guess you would hope them to be about music, or some people are just jerks. It takes such a level of maturity, and it's such a learning process to be able to separate people from their work, separating that admiration, being like, oh, I have an admiration for this, for what they create. I don't know this person to admire them. Like, I admire more of my, square friends than I do a lot of celebrities, just because of their character. Celebrity is such a fleeting thing, and I've seen how people look when they're chasing that. It's not a good look, man. Like, it.
Yeah, but you're a young black male out in LA chasing his dream, being successful at his dream, the American dream. And there are going to be kids at your shows looking up to you. And yeah, it's a weird place to be in, because obviously representation is so important and people want to be able to identify with artists. But at the same time,
Right.
It can definitely feel like a forced narrative, especially if you're not making it like a personal talking point. And it might be a little bit overdone. But the way that Kanye hooked you, I'm sure there's going to be a moment where someone gets grabbed by your work.
Even with the whole Kanye thing, right? Like, I'm such a fan of what he does, and for a long time it seemed like he was kind of the guy that a lot of people wanted to be like having that sort of having that passion, having that confidence in what you do. As times have kind of changed, he's kind of doubled down on whatever stance he has, and it kind of has been like a hindrance to his growth as a person.
I can agree with that.
What I mean?
I can agree with that.
So it's like I'm at a point now where like, but it's not so hard for me now to be like, oh, Kanye's not that guy for me to model my life. First of all, I'm an adult now, so you know what I mean. I'm not really as susceptible to wanting to model my character after this other man over here, unless it's really a person of integrity. You know what I mean? Like I know more of what that looks like now.
Right.
And a lot of celebrities don't really embody that. But it's because it's such a being an entertainer, man. It leaves you so vulnerable to insecurities and just pettiness. You know what I mean? Like trying to maintain this relevance is it a lot of times it brings out the worst in people. When you don't work a muscle, it atrophies. So if you're not working that, if you're not working your brain, if you're not trying to take in new information and digest it, or hear other people's opinions and being able to sort through it, you'll lose that ability. And I feel like a lot of artists or celebrities or whatever, they just don't want that internal struggle. They don't want to deal with that, and so they don't, because they don't have to.
Well, that's a heavy subject, so I appreciate you humoring me going down that narrative with me.
No problem.
My spider sense is going off. You're rolling one up on me, so I think I'm gonna wind this down so you can enjoy the rest of your Sunday. So,
I know it's all good.
Where can we find you? What you got cooking in 2019? Any compliments you want to give my show? Any parting words? Floor is yours, my friend.
Man, I appreciate you reaching out, for real. It sounds like you really have a high level of appreciation and doing your homework. So I appreciate you, hitting me up, man. And as far as 2019, just more music. I'm definitely putting out an instrumental project in the next few months. And just really my goal this year is to get in with more artists, get some more shit done.
All right, man. 2019 is a year for working. You heard it here.